everything was dead inside me. I mean, there was a point that I felt that way, that I was starting to lose any capability of love or friendship or the joys of living, and the system in general. It squeezes you empty. I can't even overestimate the importance of the visiting room and having these visits. My family saw that. They lived through that with me, and it is because of them fundamentally that I stand here today, free man, and I still have my humanity. Greetings and salutations. I'm Victor DeSordi. Welcome to my channel at 28 to Persevere. Thanks for watching. These videos really put me in a reflective state of mind. I mean, I'm naturally very pensive and reflective on my life, and these videos will allow me an outlet to express my intrinsic natural inclinations and my thoughts deeply, how I truly feel intrinsically. Intrinsically, I believe that deep within me, I can release a lot of my pent up anxieties, the other things that I've been stressing about throughout the years of my incarceration and continue to harbor to a large extent. When you leave the joint, you still are honestly taking part of what you went through with you. You can't just leave it behind and forget about it. That's not normal. It's not even a natural inclination of man's instinctive nature to do such a thing. You reflect on it. And for me personally, I get very pensive and very understanding with what I went through and how moving forward, these videos and this outlet allows me to share all of this with you, which I am truly grateful for. And it is something that is cathartic, and I spoke about that in previous videos. I reflect a lot on what I went through. I reflect a lot on the stories that I was told while I was incarcerated, the things I saw personally, things that I had to go through, the things that I put myself through, willingly and unwillingly, because it was just the natural order of things when it comes to survival. The system. One thing I learned, there was a mantra in there. What I thought of in my mind, that they were going to crush me down to the point from which there was no coming back from. Things were going to happen to me that I could not recover, no matter if I lived 1,000 years. And I understood that. Never again would I be capable of ordinary human feeling if I just continued down the pathway of no opportunity and the void that awaited me through this dark journey that I was on. I mean, everything was dead inside me. I mean, there was a point that I felt that way, that I was starting to lose any capability of love or friendship or the joys of living. And I had an indomitable lust for life, for laughter, for curiosity. Um, I truly valued friendship and courage and honor and dignity and the integrity of life that I held dear to my heart, through how I lived and how I moved every day prior to coming to prison. And even while I was incarcerated, I tried to hold on to all that. You know, um, you realize in prison you could become real hollow, and you could forget any type of intimacy with trying to understand the world outside the wall anymore, on an intimate level, to truly understand what the next person is thinking and feeling, because all that you really are going through is what you're having to confront every day behind bars. That type of mentality. You know, um, One thing I've realized, really quickly, and the system in general, it squeezes you empty. How it's predicated on the punishment, retribution, and how they fill you up with themselves. How they move and how they think, and they being the system in general. The way the art of corrections is actually implemented every day in there. It's like a systemic, scientific, coercive elimination of the individuality of the mind, and your sense of identity. You start to lose touch with that. And it's something that really struck me and has stricken me throughout my years of incarceration. And something that I really truly embraced was my own sense of individuality, my sovereignty, freedom of mind and thought. And in prison, you lose a little bit of that every day. And you may not be conscious of it, but it is there. You're aware of it and how you move and how you think and how the The group think is huge in prison. I mean, everybody's thinking collectively instead of individuality. Individually, you're not really thinking about um, what you're going to do that day. You're thinking about what everybody else is doing around you because you got to maneuver around them to survive, just to make it through that day. Which I believe then leads me into what I consider fundamentally the most important aspect, something that you truly have to hold on to, which is fundamentally important, which is the quintessential principle of change. Something that you have to come to understand that it is easier to behave your way into a new way of thinking than to think your way into a new way of behaving. I mean, it's a way of thought and mind and putting two and two together and then living in such a fashion where you can still hold on to who you truly are in a world where everybody's losing themselves. Everybody's acting in such a fashion that they fundamentally don't even know where they stand and sit anymore, who they really are. I mean, they're behaving in such a spontaneous, aggressive, animalistic, and savage way that you lose touch with your base instincts of humanity, your sense of empathy, your sense of understanding what the next person is feeling or not feeling. And in prison, that way of thinking is actually really looked down upon and looked upon as a weakness. And I tried to hold on to that. I really did. I tried in every way to hold on to that because I knew if I lost that, I would lose my way and I would never get out. Even when I was released, I would have been a raging lunatic. And there were times, I was on the razor's edge and I was this close to just falling over the edge, man. And that was it. There was no coming back from that. My family saw that. They lived through that with me. And it's because of them, fundamentally, that I stand here today, free man. And I still have my humanity. I still have my sense of humor and my lust for life and living. And, something that anyone who's ever done any time knows that the connection they have with their friends and their family and how through correspondence in the mail, through visits. I mean, I can't even overestimate the importance of the visiting room and having these visits. I mean, I looked forward to them, and anybody's done any type of time. It could be county time or upstate in the worst prisons of the world. They knew and inside themselves that anytime they had a visit, I mean, that was the greatest thing. When they had a visit coming, they cracked their cell. They told you, oh, you got a visit. They got ready. They got prepped. They had, so I had, me personally, I had my own state greens that I wore, the green pants that I just wore for the visit. They were there, in my bucket, and I had them there when I needed them. They were pressed, they were clean, obviously, and I wore them just for the visiting floor. And obviously washed them and did and such. But and then I had certain shirts that were obviously visit shirts that you couldn't wear or you wouldn't wear around about walking the yard. In the prisons was in, you had certain. There was rules as far as what you could wear and what you couldn't wear, and there was some prisons you could only wear a collar shirt, obviously solid colors. I mean, there was no black or anything like that. I mean, you had that one solid color and that was it. And they had a litany of what you could bring in there with you. Obviously, your glasses if you had them and stuff like that. But none of that really was a concern of mine, other than seeing my family. I could care less what I was wearing, or I made sure I was clean. And obviously, you smell good. You don't want to bring the stench of the prison system because there is a stench with behind these walls that you bring with you. Truly, it permeates the atmosphere that you live in, and you don't want to take that with you. So I had the Muslim oils. I think a lot of the Muslim guys that I knew that they would sell these oils, and a lot of guys would buy them and put them on their clothes and obviously in their hair or whatnot, their beards, so they would smell good. Uh, you go on the visit and you put on your best face. I mean, and it's not fraudulent in any sense of the word. At least it wasn't for me. I was genuinely happy and elated to see my family and my friends, as I still am to this day. I mean, it was a true blessing, and it kept me sane. It kept me grounded in that reality outside the wall, that there was a reality and that it was awaiting me, and I had to stay strong and I had to persevere and remain steadfast on my journey, whatever it led me. I had to make sure that they knew this. So I would sit there for hours on end in the visit room. Obviously, it's structured in such a fashion. There's a timeline. You can only stay for a certain amount of time and certain days and whatnot. And people would show up. Early in my incarceration, it was my mother most of all. I mean, she would show up as frequently as she could. And early in that time in my bid, I was very aggressive, very angry, very bitter and very hostile to the world around me. And my mother, she went through it with me. I mean, she suffered alongside me, and my heart to this day breaks for the pain that she went through. And then my extended family, my father, my stepmother, who I also consider my mother, she suffered and he suffered, and my brothers and my sisters and all my extended family and friends, they went through it alongside me, but they came in support of me and throughout my entire incarceration. We're talking 28 years. They came whenever they could. And then after I was married, obviously my wife, she never missed a day. When she could come up, she came up with my children as they grew alongside her, her and I, and the things that we went through together as a family. But the visiting room was such a lifeline, and I can't stress that enough. And I always was really keen on trying to keep my family safe and secure under the circumstances that we lived in. And when you're on the visiting floor, you're like in a little bubble. You're at the table and you have your kids are there or whatever, and there's other families and people visiting, and there's a lot of things that happen in the visiting room that you want to shield your family from. Guys trying to get their nut off or whatever the case may be, and a lot of things are passed there, whatever contraband, as it was as it was shown in the visit in the prison system. But the reality was you try to focus on your loved ones. I mean, that's all. How we had a rule in the family that when we're at the table, your eyes were at the table. Whatever's going on around me, I could care less unless somebody was violating somebody physically, and it was becoming to the point that my family was going to be suffering alongside of what this, because they would bear witness to something that would be horrific, and I wouldn't allow that to happen. So I tried my best to shield them under the circumstances, keep their eyes focused at the table, and that was a task in itself, because as I said, you bring this mentality, the prison system, into the visiting room. Even though guys are ready to be there, you still have this is prison. I mean, you'll never know what's going to happen or what's going to pop off in the visiting room. I've seen fights on the visiting floor. I saw a guy smack his wife one time, which was horrific, and obviously he was taken immediately to the box and taken down by the correctional officers. But my wife and I, especially her, to her credit, I mean, she always, every time I stepped in there, she'd stand up, holding one of the children when they were babies, or just both the kids when they were old enough to stand on their own, and they would stand up and give me a big smile, regardless. Regardless, they didn't know what type of mentality I was going to have coming in, or where my emotion level would be, or my mood, because obviously you get very moody in prison. I mean, you're not going to be jovial and when you're walking in there all the time, even though you're elated, obviously, to see your loved ones. But they would stand up, and she would give me a big smile and open arm hug, and as my whole family would do, and my friends, my friends, the friends that continued to come in and bless me with their presence throughout my incarceration, the friends that have continued to reach out to me to this day. I mean, I shout out them every day. Their blessings, something that I truly appreciate wholeheartedly. I remember walking in the visiting floor and you'd see your family stand up, and that was the greatest moment. And there are a lot of prisoners that I met that were just, prisoners that were frequently on the visiting floor that I got close to, that then their families got close to my family, and there was bonds, and it covered the spectrum. It wasn't just a race-based bond. I mean, there was guys that I was cool with from all different races and cultures and whatnot, and if they're family orientated, is something I respected, especially under the circumstances. Like I just said previously, I mean, prison beats you down, swallows you up, and spits you out, and you are something that you never thought you would be, and then your family doesn't even understand who you are anymore, and that happens to a lot of guys. I mean, they go, "Who is this guy? What happened to him?" And when I see guys on the visiting floor with their loved ones and they're holding true to their family, I respect that. I truly believe in that way of thinking, and that form of empathy that you have with your loved ones. It's quintessential for a man's survival behind the wall, and it's something that I held on to with as hard as I could. Every breath I took, I believed that was for the benefit of my family, and it was to their credit. I was continuing to take that breath, and my level of strength and my level of determination to confront whatever it was that was in front of me, no matter what the time was. I mean, there were times we had visits where I was just a miserable human being to be around. I can imagine, but they kept coming. And my family and my friends, they just kept coming, kept visiting. So anyone who's done time knows this. They know that how important it is, the visiting room, and I just want to stress that on this video so people can truly get a deeper understanding of how fundamental these lifelines are, and that lifeline in particular, to keeping a man sane in an insane world. So until the next time, go with the gods, persevere.